Hello everybody, it is Steve, your friendly neighborhood lawn gnome. Welcome back to another episode of Stats, Trends, and Picks for May of 2023 over here on That's Comical. And of course, if you happen to be watching and it's a Wednesday, happy new comic book day. Before I begin, I just want to say that if I sound a little off, that's just because I'm fighting something. I don't know what it is. Who knows what my daughter brings home from daycare these days, but I'm trying to get through it. But I'm also going to say that this is going to be a relatively shorter video than normal, and that's actually, in this case, a very positive thing and not a negative thing. I don't know if it was Free Comic Book Day this month, or if it's the fact that it was a 5-week new comic book month, or maybe it's because of the fact that this month I celebrated both my daughter and my wife's birthdays, but something incredible happened, and we're going to get to that as soon as we get through the numbers. It was a very bountiful month, as you can see by the numbers. Don't let it fool you, because even though I got 45 comic books in the month of May, take into account that 6 of them were actually free comic books, but I still like to add them to the totals, so I like to see what my purchasing power is and where my allegiances lie. And we have a tie. This is not the first time that this has happened, but this time it is between both DC and Image. I still have to say, I am so impressed with the fact that DC is still ranking in my top spots with all the craziness that is going on in management over there. I mean, Marvel's pretty much dead and buried at this point in time. Not even going to go into what I read regarding to Marvel Comics this past month, but it is just still incredible to see that this is happening with DC Comics, because maybe it's because of the fact that Mark Waid and Dan Mora are just giving me so many great things to read. That could be the case. Or maybe it's these miniseries that just pop up out of nowhere, on Marvel's side as well, that just get me so interested in the big two. But yes, Image and DC tied this month, and when you take a look at the percentages, that means each of those companies took a chunk out of my pie, and that was almost 32% for each. Also, I want to state, it is nice to see that the other conglomerate has picked up the pace as well, and that's just because of the fact that I am digging to really try and find these stories that I know I'm going to enjoy, and one of them specifically is the second series of 007 that Philip Kennedy Johnson is writing, and I'm just personally enjoying it as a James Bond fan, but also I'm getting some big surprises like Matt Kint's Hairball, so a little surprises here and there, and that doesn't mean that that boat has not sailed for the others, and we will take a look at that very soon. But once again, nice to see that Image and DC are neck and neck, and that other is slowly creeping up. We'll see what the rest of 2023 will bring, especially considering the fact that we are heading into the very center of the year of 2023. So, what was the big announcement? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it has happened. The Lawn Gnome has officially predicted a perfect new comic book month. I was so impressed with the fact that everything that I thought was going to be my favorite read of each week of this 5-week new comic book month turned out to be exactly right. So, just in case you forgot what my top picks were for each week of the month, let's take a look at them, shall we? For the first week in May, I said it was going to be the newest offering from the dynamic duo of DC Comics today, that is Mark Waid and Dan Mora, bringing us Shazam #1. I loved it. Golden Age, really feeling like those classic comic books of old, really getting the peak of Billy Batson and Captain Marvel, aka Shazam. I loved every bit of this first issue, and I cannot wait to see where Waid and Mora take this story next. For the second week in May, I knew it was going to be the 5th issue of Miracle Man, The Silver Age, over at Marvel Comics from Neil Gaiman and Mark Buckingham. This story is just so captivating, and I'm talking about this story going all the way back to the beginning of Alan Moore's run. I am just so excited with 2 issues left in the Silver Age where this story is going to conclude, and my fingers are crossed for that 3rd and final piece of Gaiman and Buckingham's trilogy known as the Dark Age. Is it going to happen? And more importantly, when is it going to happen? But I'm just excited to see how the Silver Age concludes. Before I get into the next pick, I also want to give a big shout to one book that I read that week, and that was over at Boom Studios, an artist that I really like, Cullen Bunn. He's a great writer, loves to do horror. He gave us this book called Ghost Lore #1. It's going to be a maxi series. I wasn't really sure about what I was going to think about it, but I always like to give Cullen Bunn a try, and this turned out to be a very interesting first issue. It's the story of a father and daughter. The father is a priest. He's sort of falling away from faith. His daughter is also completely away from the faith, and she just wants to get away from her family, but then something out of the phenomenal happens, and now the two of them are getting united through tragedy, and we're going to see where this story goes. So, if you want to read a very interesting story, I would highly recommend Ghost Lore #1 over at Boom Studios. Moving into the third week of May, I gave it to Batman Superman World's Finest. Again, Mark Waid and Dan Mora. I am loving this third story arc. We've got 2 more issues to go in this story arc, and I'm just dying to see where these two guys are going to take Batman and Superman World's Finest next. This is the hottest comic in DC right now, at least to the loyal readers. I just wish we could see it higher in the rankings. For the fourth week of May, I gave it to The Ambassadors, issue #5. It is the penultimate issue over at Image Comics. Mark Millar. Love this story. Really excited to see where this goes, and more excited for what's going to be happening in June. Apparently, Mark Millar is doing a mini-series that is going to cross over some of his biggest franchises and that is going to include The Ambassadors. So I'm really curious to see where that goes, but The Ambassadors has been such an interesting story, and I'm also really curious to know if The Ambassadors will have their own follow-up mini-series, maybe even a maxi or even an ongoing series. But this has been one of the strongest books of 2023. And to cap off the last week of May 2023, I gave it to Venom Lethal Protector 2, issue #3 over at Marvel Comics by Dave Michelini. It was a small week. I only got 4 books then, and I had a feeling it was going to be the best of the 4. And again, this is classic 90s Venom nostalgia, fun, exciting, such a fun romp. I highly recommend this book to you if you haven't read it yet. And also go back to read the first Lethal Protector miniseries that came out last year. It was great too. So, am I going to have this much luck in June 2023? I'm going to go out and say no, but I still would like to show you guys what my predictions are going to be for June of 2023. So, the first week, I'm going to give it to a very special book over at DC Comics, the 800th issue of The Flash. It is going to be a series of short stories concluding Jeremy Adams' run, which was absolutely wonderful. I'm so glad I actually gave it a shot, but it's not just the fact that Jeremy Adams is going to be part of this. We're also going to see some great names from The Flash's past. We're going to see a story from Geoff Johns, from Mark Waid, even Josh Williamson, 3 of the best Flash writers of the last 20, possibly 30 years. So I am just really excited for The Flash 800. I'm just expecting it to be good. And also, I'm curious to see where Simon Spurrier, who's the next writer of The Flash, is going to take this character, because we're going to get a tease to his run in September. For the second week of June, I'm going to give it to another DC title, and I'm giving it to the second issue of Green Lantern, which is being written by Jeremy Adams. Thank God DC saw the value in him and put him on Green Lantern, because even though it didn't get the top spot, meaning issue #1 in May, I loved it. It was great. I loved Jeremy Adams' take on Hal Jordan, and I also liked Philip Kennedy Johnson's B story in the back with Jon Stewart. I don't know what's going to happen with that story. I'm hearing it's going to turn into its own series, but as long as Philip Kennedy Johnson writes it, I'll probably read it. But Jeremy Adams has already done great on one issue, and I'm anticipating this one to be just as fun. So for the third week in June, we're going to see 2 big books over at Marvel coming out. Philip Kennedy Johnson is going to be starting his Incredible Hulk run with Nick Klein as the artist, and we're also going to be seeing Jonathan Hickman and Brian Hitch teaming up to bring the Ultimate World of Marvel back with a 4-issue miniseries of Ultimate Invasion. But those 2 are not going to hold a candle to my prediction for that week, and it's going to DC Comics again. Mark Waid and Dan Mora, Batman Superman World's Finest, issue #16, the penultimate issue of the 3rd story arc. I love this series. I can't express it any more than that. Read it. Let DC know that this is a good series. Maybe they'll really do good things with Mark Waid and Dan Mora moving forward if this just continues to be a hot item and a real cult following for the loyal readers of DC Comics who love these heroes. And for the final week of June 2023, I'm not giving it to DC Comics. Yeah, we almost saw a clean sweep, but I'm giving it to Dark Horse Comics with a brand new start of a 4-issue miniseries called Savage Squad 6. And the reason why is because one of my favorite writers is writing it, and that is Robert Venditti. Robert Venditti has also announced that he's going to be doing a really special project for DC Comics in the fall of 2023, so I'm really excited for that. I don't know anything about this story. All I know is that Robert Venditti is one of my favorite writers. His Hawkman run was probably one of the best. And I do have a soft spot for his miniseries over at DC, which was Age of Krypton. Even though the art was terrible, I liked the story. I think he's a great writer, so anything that he is attached to, I want to give a fair shot for. So Savage Squad 6, I'm going to read it. That's going to wrap up another episode of Stats, Trends, and Picks, everybody. Please put your comments in the box below. Let me know what some of your favorite picks in May of 2023 were, and what are you looking forward to most in June. But in the meantime, I will see you in the next one.